guys, what's going on? It's Ash here coming at you today in Raid Shadow Legends. So we talked about this in a video, I don't know, a couple weeks ago here on the channel, talking about how it took me going free to play to realize how much resources goes into upgrading any champion in the game. And my big takeaway from that is I am so much more selective, and I think it's really a big mistake that a lot of newer players, even more seasoned players, make inside the game. I know I've made this mistake in the past, even on my non-free-to-play, on my main account, and that is just kind of overextending the champions that I'm investing in, and then I don't have the resources, then it ends up costing me money. This is how Plarium makes money, right? It's obvious, but you guys should know this intuitively and always have this in the forefront of your mind. Oh, they're throwing a bunch of new champions at us here. I'm not saying these champions are crap. Usually they're better than the champions that we have right now to entice us to spend more or to farm more or whatever it may be, spend more time at the very least in upgrading them, and it doesn't always make sense.
What is this game?
Now, as a disclaimer, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through every single epic champion in the game that I think is an auto upgrade, like no questions asked. However, it doesn't mean that there's not other champions, and we'll touch on some of them as we go through these factions, that I also wouldn't upgrade, or I would upgrade, excuse me, if I need that one specific skill set. But we're going to talk about champions that are more versatile, that can help you in a bunch of different areas, or who I consider game changers in their own right, whether that be, you know, offense, support, crowd control, whatever. So that's kind of the disclaimer in terms of how we're approaching this video. And I know already that a lot of you guys are going to be surprised at some of the champions that I leave off this list, but again, I will reiterate one more time before we jump into it here, guys. I'm only talking about champions that on my free-to-play account, even though we're not on there right now. I hate that it's all like blacked out when you don't have champions, so we went on the main account because I have most of these champions, but I'm talking to you guys from experience, right? I've upgraded so many champions, and odds are you guys have at least one champion that you spent resources on that seemed great on paper, but you just don't use. And the idea here is to combat that psychologically and kind of approach this game where you're only investing in champions if they're a really good upgrade or if they're really going to help you in a lot of areas inside the game. So we're going to start with Archmage Helmet, man. I mean, this guy's amazing. I love this guy. Very fast, good base stats, has the increased speed, crit rate, crit damage on a 3-turn cooldown for 2 turns. It's a great ability. Then he has an AoE stun at a 75% clip when booked. Just an incredible champion. He's Doom Tower though, so I mean, if you get him from Doom Tower, you pretty much know you're going to be investing in him. Now, when we look along the top line here of Bannerlords, there's only one other champion who's an auto upgrade for me, and that is Stag Knight. Stag Knight, again, is so good. You know, there's a couple other champions in the game who are also Spirit Affinity, but really none that do it better than Stag Knight. Simple kit, but effective. Decreased defense, decreased attack, 95% success rate. Very fast as well at 107 speed. I always look for my debuffers to be fast, right? And then 20k HP. You guys know me. I actually put my Stag Knight in a shield set as well to give him extra utility on my team. So he's support and debuffer on the teams that I have him on, and that helps out a lot. And then next up, you know, like I said, I'm gonna give nods to some champions that are not auto max out for me. Like if I pulled Warcaster on my free-to-play account, I would not invest in him right now. But in the late game, as you're approaching Faction Wars, and we'll basically make an exception for Faction War specialists, champions that I would invest in only for Faction Wars, Warcaster would be in that camp. So I'm not gonna go over all their kits. Same thing with Ursula the Mourner. I think she's really cool, really good in AoE attack with an increased attack. I guess I would invest in Ursula. So I guess with the revival, all dead ally revival on a 5-turn cooldown with increased defense and strengthen for 3 turns, yeah, she's pretty dang good. So to recap here, Ursula, Archmage Helmet, and Stag Knight are my only go-to 100%. I am upgrading them no matter what. And as honorable mentions, we have Warcaster. We also have Seneschal, who is pretty good with the continuous heal and perfect veil, as well as the counterattack and provoke with the leech on his A1. But again, for me, I'm not investing in Seneschal unless I need him for Faction Wars. I'm not on my free-to-play account. I'm not going to upgrade him. I'd rather stick with my core champions, because to me, over over the support champions that you probably already have. He's not that big of an upgrade that to me, again, would justify allocating a bunch of more resources into him. Royal Guard, a no-brainer, man. Royal Guard's one of the best epics in the game. It's an epic that you'll definitely be using well into the end game. I mean, there's people who use Royal Guard who are the biggest spenders in the world, still using Royal Guard. He has an incredible aura for dungeons, 35%, and then he has an AoE in Takedown, which does a ton of damage, especially in Spider. It's hard to get away from Royal Guard. And then unless you have Septimus, you're basically using Royal Guard, right? And then Hamstring is a great ability as well. He also has decreased defense on his A1. Royal Guard is slow, but everything else is amazing in Royal Guard. Definitely a champion that is a no-brainer. Invest for me. Tyrell, quick caveat here, I'm investing in Tyrell unless I already have a debuffer. Like if I already have a really solid debuffer and I already have a defense in all battles aura for Clan Boss, I'm skipping on Tyrell. So for example, on my free-to-play account, I have Achak the Wenderin, who has 25% defense in all battles. I also have a Sepulture Sentinel.
You're joking. Not another one?
Which has 25% in all battles. So I'm not investing in Tyrell, believe it or not. He's a great champion, damage based on defense. He has a decreased defense, albeit on a 4-turn cooldown, which is not what we love to see. And then he has a decreased attack. Really good champion, especially with that aura. But at the end of the day, he's a no-brainer unless you already have a debuffer and a defensive aura. I see this, you know, it might sound really obvious and maybe, you know, some people are just like, why are you even saying this? But I see some people invest in a champion who might be a really good champion in a vacuum, but dude, you already have a champion that does the same thing. Like, why are you investing? Think about the quality of improvement on, you know, what you have right now. So really important to think about that stuff, right? So Thanasil is a really good champion. I think that he's even underrated personally. I would invest in Thanasil because he has Oak Skin, which is a great heal, and increased defense on a 3-turn cooldown, and an AoE attack that does a little bit of damage, not a ton of damage on Wither on a 5-turn cooldown, but really this guy's fast. He's, you know, decent enough on terms of defense, in terms of base stats. And this increased defense with the heal on a 3-turn cooldown is unique and really, really strong. So Thanasil is on my list. Vergis is really good, but again, for me, not a no-brainer at this point, but very good. More towards the late game, once you already have all the basics down. But if I pull the Vergis on my free-to-play, I wouldn't invest in him right away. Great champion doesn't mean he's not great, but it means that he's not bringing something to the table that, you know, I don't have elsewhere, right? And he brings a lot of selfish things to the table, right? He has a great ally protect, don't get me wrong, but he's, you know, he's doing a lot to himself with his passive, and then he's doing, you know, continuous heal, increased speed, and reflect damage on one ally for 3 turns, granted on a 3-turn cooldown. A very good champion, but none auto upgrade for me. Next up, we have so the only 3 that I'm going to include in this category are Royal Guard, Tyrell, and Thanasil. And then Vergis and also a Battle Sage, or not Exemplar, Battle Sage are really good for kind of niche, maybe Doom Tower for Vergis, and maybe for Battle Sage Arena, like Gold and Platinum tier Arena, because she has an increased attack and then a cleanse, which is really nice to have. So anyway, those 3 champions, I'm going to stop mentioning every champion who I'm not including on the list because it's getting a little bit confusing here, Ash. Come on, bro. All right, so next up is going to be Hope. I think Hope is fantastic. She has an AoE attack on a 3-turn cooldown with a 75% chance at removing all buffs. That's a great ability to have, and again, she's fast with a lot of HP. So I think that Hope, just for this one ability, is worth upgrading. Removing buffs from enemies, so important in this game. Sanguinia is a really cool aesthetically looking champion. I think she's a champion that is worth investing in as well. She has a 3-time hitter and red punishment on her A1. On her A2, she places a block debuffs and a continuous heal on all allies for 2 turns on a 3-turn cooldown. Great healing ability. And then she has attack 1 enemy, 100% chance at transferring all debuffs from this champion to the target, and then removes all debuffs from all allies except this champion's. So she has the cleanse in there as well as a one enemy attack with the debuff transfer, and then the block debuffs, and then the continuous heal. Really good champion, and again, she's fast. You like to see that in your cleansers and your support champions with a lot of defense, with a lot of HP as well. I think Sanguinia is actually a very good, and probably an underrated champion as well. Romero is really good for faction wars, but we're not going to include him on the list. Fenax is a really good champion, but I don't think he's an auto upgrade for me. But Deacon Armstrong is. I think that Deacon Armstrong is a top 5 epic champion inside the game. He's a new champion. I don't have him yet, but he is amazing. He has a leech on his A1, on his A2, an AoE attack with a decreased defense on a 3-turn cooldown, 100% chance at landing that decreased defense when booked, make it a 95. Pick up the sniper mastery, and you're looking at 100%. And then on his A3, check this ability out, guys. Time compression is insane. Fills a turn meter of all allies by 15%, decreases turn meter of all enemies by 15%, and just this one little glorious sentence at the end, grants an extra turn. We talk about this all the time here on the channel, but granting an extra turn is so valuable. This is on a 3-turn cooldown. So you're going to go boom, 3-turn cooldown, and boom, extra turn. That's going to cycle that cooldown one more turn. And, you know, we're going to have sweeping retribution because of his extra turn. This is almost on a 2.5 turn cooldown because you're going to be cycling in those extra turns every 3 turns. This dude is insane, next level. It's kind of like Seeker, right? It doesn't always, you look at his kit and you're not blown away immediately necessarily, but this guy is so good. Like legendary status good because of the extra turn on a 3-turn cooldown, similar to Seeker, and the AoE decreased defense. You can pretty much always leave up on the enemies, and the leech, dude. Very, very sick champion. I'm jealous of you guys who have Deacon Armstrong. Very, very jealous.
Don't be jelly.
Is Inquisitor Shamil an auto upgrade? No, for me he's not. Very, very good champion, but for me, he's not an auto. Same thing with Godseeker Aniri, who I did a guide on the channel. Very good champion, but I'm not, even if I pulled her on my free-to-play, I probably would. An AoE with a heal, an AoE attack with a heal, and then decrease the duration of all buffs on the enemies, and then increase the duration of all buffs on all allies, damage based on defense, and then she has a revival, revives a ally with 50% HP, then fills their turn meter by 50%, and resets the cooldown on all their skills. Really cool and unique revival on a 4-turn cooldown when booked, and then the passive is sick as well. Increases the amount of healing allies receive by 10%, not just from this champion, but everywhere. And then if an ally is about to get killed by a fatal hit, preempts that hit and instantly places a revive on death buff on them for 1 turn before the damage is taken. So almost a passive revival kind of ability in her otherwise amazing kit anyway. So Hope, Deacon Armstrong, and Sanguinia, and Godseeker Aniri are going to be my autos. All right, next up, let's keep this video moving here, Ash. Come on, bro. It's going to be a 3-hour video, dude. In the Barbarians area, faction. Armina, I'm a big fan of. She's an AoE decreased defense and stealing the turn meter from targets under decreased defense. On a 3-turn cooldown, what a great ability to have, right? And she deals a decent amount of damage too. Decent multipliers on her. And then decreases the turn meter of all enemies by 20% on a 3-turn cooldown, has a 100% chance when booked of placing a stun debuff for 1 turn on enemies who have their turn meters fully depleted by this ability, and then fills his champion's turn meter by 10% each time an enemy receives a stun debuff. Really cool synergy if you put her with a Bellower in stun set, or a Scylla the Drakes, or a Fushan, like a consistent, or a Archmage helmet, someone who has a consistent stun, right? You're just speeding her up and speeding her up and speeding her up, with more damage, and she has a stun on her A1 as well. So that's Armina. I love Armina. Really, really good champion in my opinion. The next guy is going to be, I'm not including, believe it or not, High Katoon, because I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I have her on my free-to-play. I already have Apothecary. I'm not going to invest in her. Not to say she's trash, but I think I'm good. Thakkarin the Fat, though. Gotta watch my mouth when I say his name. Very unique, very good champion. He has a decreased defense on his A1. On his A2, he has a HP burn and 2 poison debuffs for 2 turns on a 3-turn cooldown. On his A3, increased crit rate, increased crit damage on all allies except this champion for 3 turns. Then, all allies except this champion will attack one target enemy. So in the beatdown ability, he has increased crit rate, increased crit damage, and an ally attack on a 4-turn cooldown. Very, very good champion. And then deflects 20% of all incoming damage this champion receives onto all allies. Okay, but actually, it ends up working out to be pretty solid, believe it or not. Good clan boss champion, a good champion all around. I really like Thakkarin the Fat. Next up is going to be, you guys know how much I love Skytouch Shaman. I think she is in a league of her own. Very good champion for the arena because of Revive on Death and block debuffs and the full cleanse on a 4-turn cooldown. Get rid of those freezes from Torment. Get rid of those block cooldown skills from Hegemon. You guys will be looking great. An AoE attack with a heal on the A1 or turn meter fill. And then the passive that does all kinds of stuff that we won't get into, except for that she's the best healer in the game. So we're gonna leave it at that. She also has a great aura, HP in all battles by 25%. Skytouch Shaman in immunity set is especially very, very effective. In Frenzy, also a great strategy for this champion. Let me look, am I forgetting anybody here? No, that's all I have for the Barbarian faction, guys. Moving on to Ogren Tribe in the epics. Ugo is, again, a top 5 epic, and I know you guys are right now starting to type in the comments below, Ash on every champion. Top 5 epic. But I really put my money where my mouth is. Let's see. Deacon, in no particular order. Deacon Armstrong, Ugo, Duck the Pierce, who we haven't gotten to yet.
6.5 hours later.
Oh man, there's a lot of them, huh? There is a lot.
You think so?
There's a lot of top 5 epics. There's like 20 top 5 epics. Stag Knight's probably still in that conversation for me, and maybe Miscreated Monster. I feel like I'm forgetting somebody. Madam Sarah, okay, what am I doing? I'm ruining my own video by hijacking it and making a top 5 epic list in the middle of it. I apologize, guys. You subscribe here for the mediocre content, and that's exactly what I deliver to you guys on a daily basis. Ugo has a AoE decreased defense, also has a block buff debuff for 2 turn. I think that she is in a league of her own with this ability, even better than Armina's where she's stealing turn meter. I think it's so cool, man. Block buffs is such an incredible ability to have on a decreased defense on a 3-turn cooldown. She also has a great heal. She's removing heal reduction debuffs and then removing a random debuff from all allies and then healing them by 20% of her max HP. If they're dead, she revives them instead. And then if she's the last living champion on your team, she got increased speed and block damage on her for 1 turn. Help her to get to this Ugo Brew or Ugo's Brew ability here. Very, very good champion. A big fan of her. I'm a big fan of Claude Beast Feeder as well. On the A1 has a decreased crit rate. On the A2 has a shield. Buff on all allies to go 20% of this champion's max HP for 2 turns. And then on the A3, increased speed and increase accuracy on all allies for 2 turns on a 3-turn cooldown. Very fast champion at 110 speed. No speed boost in here, but the increased accuracy is an incredible ability to have. Not many champions in the game have them. I think only 3, maybe 4 champions inside the entire game of every rarity have an increased accuracy AoE on all allies. Heals the ally with the lowest HP by 10% of their max HP at the start of this champion's turn. A nice little passive, delicious giblets. Perfect. To kind of round out this already great kit. Also a great shield candidate for shield artifact set at 21k base HP. Can be like a ultimate support champion. Skullcrusher we're going to put on the list. Has ally protect, counterattack, and unkillable. Assuming you don't have Valkyrie or Martyr. Excuse me, Mortar, what? Or Martyr. So that would be the way to go for Skullcrusher, just because nobody in the game has counterattack. They've added a lot of great champions to the game, guys, but I'll tell you what, it's still only 3 champions with an AoE counterattack, and Skullcrusher's not even on himself. Only 2 champions that everybody gets a counterattack, Martyr and Valkyrie. Unbelievable. Plarium, why don't you add another counterattack champion to the game?
No! No!
A Void Rare counterattack AoE, That'd be a game changer. Next up is going to be Grush the Mangler. Grush grew on me, man. He's an incredible healer. He has a leech on his A1. His damage is based on defense. He has an AoE attack with decreased attack or decreased crit damage. I hate that it's an or there. I hate that it's an or, but whatever. Still a good ability. And then this Smothering Swath on top of his leech, an AoE attack with continuous heal, and then another continuous heal as long as he lands one critical hit on one enemy. That's it. So that's a full continuous heal and then a little continuous heal on top of that every 4 turns. A great healer, great support champion overall. 2 AoE attacks in his kit, decrease attack and leech on the A1. I will be building out Grush when I pull him because he's a daily login reward champion. Shatterbone's really good, especially for Faction Wars, but he's not going to make my list today. Same thing with kind of a cult brawler for Clan Boss, but he's not an auto build for me. Maneater is, he has an AoE decrease attack on his A1 if it's critical on all enemies. On his A2, he steals the entire turn meter. Not depletes, he steals it. And then on his A3, unkillable block damage. People mainly only use him for Clan Boss, for unkillable teams, or I should say endgame players only do. But I'll tell you what, guys, this dude is a beast for progression anywhere in the game. He's Void, you know? So Maneater is an auto upgrade for me as well. And that is it for the Ogren tribes. Moving right along here on Lizardmen. Lizardmen. Oops, didn't mean to go there. I'm going to be real with you guys. There's a couple decent ones here. You know, I do think that Jarag is really good. I think that Ox the Remembered is pretty good as well. But I don't think that any of these are an auto. I'm upgrading them if I pull them no matter what. Even Jarag, who's a really good champion. I think that, you know, with power creep in this game, I just don't think he's an auto like you have to 100% anymore. For me, if I pulled him on my free-to-play, I would build him eventually, but he wouldn't be like, I wouldn't be so thrilled that I'd be like, drop everything and he's my main focus. Not anymore. And on Skinwalkers, there's only one, believe it or not, guys. Only one champion that I think is an auto. Basher's a really cool champion for the arena, kind of a specialist. But the only auto upgrade for me is Steel Skull. Very fast at 111 speed. He has his poison on the A1. He has a cleanse and a big boy heal for Steel Skull on the A2. And on the A3, increased defense for 2 turns and then another heal on all allies on a 4-turn cooldown on protection. He also has Faction Crypt's allied defense. But Steel Skull is a very, very good champion. So he is auto for me. But that's it here, guys. Some champions I respect, like Taurus for Doom Tower, like I think that Urson Ironhide is a respectable champion. He helped me out in Faction Wars, but again, this isn't about, okay, who can provide you a little bit of utility in just the arena or just Faction Wars. It's about champions that I pull and I'm like, wow, super excited, gonna build that champion 100%. Next up is gonna be Duck the Pierced. Talked about him, he's one of our 15 top 5 champions. On the A1, decreased accuracy. On the A2, decreased attack, decreased defense. And then on the damage based on defense, by the way, on a 3-turn cooldown. The decreased defense is on each critical hit, by the way, noteworthy there. But he has an AoE provoke as well on a 4-turn cooldown. Plays a provoke debuff for, not an AoE, excuse me, on 3 targets. A provoke debuff on 1 enemy guaranteed, providing, you know, accuracy affinity. And then also has a 75% chance of placing a provoke debuff for 1 turn on 2 random enemies, has a reflect damage on himself and an unkillable on himself. I just did a guide on this guy as well. Duck the Pierced, very, very good champion. He carries my free-to-play account. Him and Kale are a 1-2 tandem, a 1-2 punch. So other champions here in Orcs. Well, I can tell you one guaranteed is going to make the list. Seer is an auto build for everybody. For everybody. Because you might have a good nuker for Doom Tower and for dungeons, but you don't have a nuker as good as Seer. I mean, like, even Royal Guard is great, but no one can burn waves literally with Karma Burn like Seer does, especially for Doom Tower, because not only is she killing everybody in this enemy max HP one-shot kill ability, but she's also removing all of their buffs. Downside is, she's removing all of your team's buffs too. No big deal. But Seer is incredible. So, auto build on top of Seer? Well, let me just name the 3 names that I'm looking at here. Zargala is incredible, but if you already have a decrease defense champion, I am not building Zargala, especially if I have like a Ward Maiden already built on a 3-turn cooldown decrease defense. Because Zargala is a great nuker, but I'm not going to build her if I already have a Force Affinity decrease defense. Vrask is one of the best healers in the game. In terms of how much healage output a epic champion could put out, actually any champion could put out in this game, Skytouch Shaman and Vrask are in a league of their own. You know, we're talking over 1 million heals, because this dude heals on every ability. He's a support monster. You know, his damage is based on HP, and his heals are also 10% of his max HP when he inflicts a critical hit. So what you want to do is put him in a shield set. He is just an absolute stud because you're building his HP to be, you know, north of 50k, north of 75k. Heck, some people even build Vrask with 100k HP. You're getting a 30k bonus shield for 3 rounds every round as well, or 3 turns every round, excuse me. Very, very good champion. Defense in dungeons by 33%. What a dungeon carry. I gotta be honest, I probably am building Vrask if I pulled them on my free-to-play accounts. I will include Vrask. And Sandlash Survivor, I'm building her if I don't have an increased allied defense in all battles by 25% champion. If I don't have that Tayrel. Really good champion, especially for clan boss with the ally protect and the block damage on this champion. And then she has one of these abilities. We just talked about it in another champion. Decrease Sanguinea, right? Sanguinea? And then she has a provoke on the A1 as well. But for me, if I pulled her on my free to play, she's really borderline, but I'm tempted to go no, which is crazy because she's a great champion. But you know how it is. All right, Demon Spawn, Allure auto build. I mean, Allure is in a league of her, in a class of her own because of this A1. 3 times at random, decrease a target's turn meter by 25% on each critical hit. So good against bosses, Doom Tower, even after their buff against turn meter, she's still so good against Doom Tower bosses. A lot of my clanmates use her. I don't use her because I have Lysandra, but that'd be probably the only exception to when I wouldn't build Allure is if I have Lysandra and maybe a couple Cold Hearts for Fire Knight, because for Fire Knight, she's incredible. Allure's a great champion. I don't know, should I even do the Doom Tower champions? Yes, Akoth the Seer does look really good. Nobody in the game has him at the time of this recording. An AoE attack with HP burn, an AoE attack on top of that, which increases the cooldown of all skills by 2 turns on enemies under that HP burn. Also has a passive, chance of placing a fear debuff on an enemy for 1 turn whenever they receive damage from an HP burn placed on themselves. So really good champion. He looks to be really good, but again, nobody has him at the time of this recording. I think Achak the Wenderin, I mean, I'm probably biased because I run this dude on my free-to-play account, but he's really good, man. Heals all allies by 5% on his passive of their max HP every time an enemy under an HP burn gets a turn. Fills a turn meter by 10% every time a freeze debuff enemy gets a turn. And then he has the freeze and the HP burn on a 3-turn cooldown on his A3. And then he has block debuffs and strengthen on a 4-turn cooldown. Not many, I want to say, are there any champions in this game who have block debuffs and strengthen on the same ability? There's gotta be, but I can't think of them. And then a chance of decreasing the duration of 1 random buff if they're under HP burn, and same thing with freeze. So I think that this champion, with the aura to defense in all battles by 25%, is a really unique and very good champion. I would and did build him even on my free-to-play. Umbral, she's really good. I'm gonna say an AoE provoke, blocking her own cooldown skills, but this is kind of a game changer type ability, especially in the arena, but really it's great to use anywhere. She also has an AoE attack, damage is based on defense, plays a block bust for 3 turns on a 3-turn cooldown. The only downside is she's putting a 5-turn cooldown on herself, right? So there's that anyway. But Umbral Enchantress is a very, very good champion. There's a lot of good champions here. I do want to give a final shout out to this new champion as well, Tarshan. Very good, an AoE weaken, and an increased defense on all allies for 2 turns with the 20% turn meter fill. If it was on a 3-turn cooldown when booked, guaranteed auto build OP champion, I still think that he's very, very good. I don't know. Demonic Possession, I don't know, guys. What do you think? Provoke, damage based on defense, high defense. Yeah, I would build Tarshan as well. So there you have it, guys. Quite a few champions in Demon Spawn. Undead Horde. Mausoleum Mage auto build. He's really, really good. Increased crit rate, increased defense, and block debuffs on all allies for 1 turn on a 3-turn cooldown. Also has the cleanse, which is so important right now against all these Doom Tower bosses. Synergizes so well with Seer, as you guys know. I'm sure a lot of you guys probably use the tandem of Mausoleum Mage and Seer if you're lucky enough to have both of them. And a decreased speed on his A1 just to add another great debuff to an already fantastic kit. Mausoleum Mage, an incredible champion. He's the biggest no-brainer for me. I am a fan of Vogoth though, guys. I did a guide on Vogoth, 3-time hitter on this A1. On his A2, it's a 3-turn AoE provoke. It's at a, 60-75% chance. Also has a 75% chance of placing a decreased attack debuff for 2 turns on targets who receive the provoke debuff from this skill. So, really good ability. And then 2 passives. Whenever this champion is attacked, heals all allies by 50% of the damage received, 25 from bosses. That's a way better heal than Burgoth, the Malformed, is that his name? Way better heal. And then when attacked, places a leech debuff on the attacker for 2 turns. If the attacker is under provoke debuff by this champion, also has a 100% chance of increasing the cooldown of a random skill on the attacker by 2 turns, occurs once per attack. This Eerie Presence passive is not on a cooldown. So really, really solid ability. So between the leech and between the this passive, he also puts out a lot of healing. So I think that Vogoth is a very, very good champion. And Dark Elhain is a great nuker, not an auto build for me, but just a fantastic nuker, I would say, against any freeze team in the arena or against Ice Golem, who's freezing you. Just a tremendous synergy between Death's Majesty and the other abilities. So if you're looking for an anti-freeze option, go with Dark Elhain. And then Seeker, of course, is so good for the arena. We talked about it. 3-turn, fills the turn meter by 30%, increase attack, and then grants an extra turn. What an insane champion. Very simple, but insane champion. Has a provoke on the A1, has a defense in arena by 30, and then heals his champion by 20% and places an increased defense on all allies for 2 turns whenever he's hit with a critical hit. Granted, every 5 turns it happens. But Seeker is a very, very good champion. Batman, as they call him, used widely, not just in arena anymore, but also in Clan Boss. I use him on my Clan Boss team as a matter of fact as well. So, last shout out here, not on my must build list, but Gorgorab's pretty dang close. This champion's very, very good. He has a turn meter fill, increase attack, and revive all dead allies. And then on his speed and arena battles by 23%. A lot of people use him as their speed or lead, especially if they don't have a better option, one of those 30% champions until they get like Arbiter. So very, very good crop here in Undead Horde. And again, I'm skipping over a lot of champions that are very good in their own right. Don't take that as an affront to them. I'm just saying these are, the best of the best in my opinion. 2 champions here. Madame Ceres, incredible. I mean, she's placing fears. She's placing shields on herself. She's removing all buffs from all enemies. Decrease attack, decrease defense, stealing buffs, putting true fear all over the place. I could read her kit, but you guys are probably familiar if you've watched any content here on the channel. Madame Ceres is an absolute insane monster in the arena especially, but of course in the mid game, really good even outside the arena as a debuffer, right? And in Doom Tower where you need to remove all those pesky buffs from your opponents, she's got it on lockdown. So a lot of good champions here, a lot of them. But I do want to give a big shout out to Sylar. Sylar is one of those champions you don't realize how good she is until you build her. She's really good. She is on this list, just to be very, clear about that. An AoE on the A1. Sign me up. Already sounds good. An AoE on the A2 with a decreased accuracy, great for Spider on Toxin Cloud on the A2. And then on the A3, decreased speed on all enemies for 2 turns and decreases the turn meter of all enemies by 40%. Leaden Legs is a sick ability, guys. So she has 2 AoEs, and then boom, every 4 turns when booked, she's coming in with a decreased speed for 2 turns and turn meter reduction by 40%. Very, very good champion. Fast champion too at 105. I love Sylar. So, man, I can keep going on here. Shout out to Lua. Don't have her on my list, but could very well be there. That's my Dark Elves. A lot of good champions there, excuse me. All right, guys, we're almost wrapped up here. Night Revenant. All right, who do I see here? There's a lot of them. There's a lot of good champs, man. There's a lot of good epics. See what I'm talking about? There's so many good epics that it makes you think that everybody's worth upgrading. I've gone through like 30 champions here. There's a lot of good champions. They keep adding more good ones. A lot of these champions I've been talking about today have been new champions. Miscreated Monster is still a beast with his AoE stun. No one can do better than him when it comes to AoE stun, but AoE shield. No one can do better than him for a spider shield in the game, bar none, but he's just very, very useful for shield everywhere, especially some people use him in the arena. A lot of people use him in Ice Golem to withstand all those kind of auto-triggered attacks by the Ice Golem. Ally Protect as well. Stun in the A1, very, very good champion. Sinesh is very good, but I'm not going to call her a must build. If I pulled her on my free play, I probably would not build her until I needed her for Faction Wars. Doom Priest, man, what do I say about Doom Priest? Is she a must build? If I pulled her today, would I start, drop everything, she's my priority? I don't think she's a must build, but she's will get to her eventually because she's that good, you know? This pass, I'm not just gonna keep it moving here, guys, but heals all allies on her passive by 7.5% of her HP and removes 1 random debuff from the start at the start of this champion's turn, excuse me. A great kind of built-in cleanse to have. A lot of people using Doom Priest, even more now with the advent of Doom Tower in this game. Sacrificial Sentinel, I'm gonna say if you don't have that ally defense in all battles, we talked about it on what, 3 or 4 champions now, go ahead and build her. If you don't have that Tyrell, Sandlash, or Achek the Wenderin, if you don't have those champions, go ahead and build her out. She also has an increased defense and block debuffs on all allies for 2 turns on a 4-turn cooldown. So a very good champion. If I didn't have the aura, I would use her 100% for Clan Boss. She has a cool passive as well. In terms of auto builds on top of that, I think the only other one that I'm going to touch on here is Skullcrown. Skullcrown's just such a good nuker. You could use her for in the arena, for, you know, for that aura lead and to be your nuker. She's so annoying because of the unkillable. She's so effective, I should say, because of the unkillable that she's putting on herself. Very good champion. Then 2 AoE attacks. She's really, really good. Hard-hitting nuker, great for Spider as well. And then wrapping this video up here, guys, Grizzled Jarl is an auto build for me. I think he's a tremendous champion, underrated champion. Damage based on defense, heal reduction 100% on the A1. On the A2, block debuffs, increased defense on a 3-turn cooldown. Thank you very much. Eat that, Sacrificial Sentinel. Hard to compare the two, but you guys get the point. And then an AoE decrease attack. And again, damage based on defense here, guys. This guy is in a league of his own. He's very unique with a decreased attack, damage based on defense, increased defense, block debuffs on a 3-turn cooldown, and heal reduction. Brings a lot to the table. He's an auto build for me. And then Runekeeper Dazdirk is on my list as well. Very fast champion, good base stats. On the A1 has a leech. On the A2, increase attack buff on all allies for 2 turns, fills their turn meters by 25%, kind of like a mini seeker type ability. And then on his A3, removes all debuffs from all allies, then heals all allies by 25% of this champion's max HP, then places a continuous heal buff for 2 turns on allies that have a debuff removed. What a great ability! Cleansing all allies, healing all allies, then putting more heals on anybody under debuffs. What a fantastic support champion. And then increase ally attack? Weird to have such a defensive support champion with an attack aura. You don't see that every day, but sure, we'll take it. He's a new addition to the game. I think he's really, really good. There's a lot of good options here. I don't think the Rearguard Sergeant is a 100% must build, but she's a really good champion. Same thing with Melga Steel Girdle. I don't think she's a 100% must build, but heck, if you're looking for a decent shield champion with a pretty good revival as well on a 5-turn cooldown, go ahead and build her out. Rockbreaker is a stud for Faction Wars, and Gala Longbraids is amazing for the arena specifically. So there's a lot of shout outs here. I didn't even talk about Four Boar. I always go 4-door.
Put some respect on my name. You understand me?
Forbor, the Bard, has a stun here. He also has an AoE decreased defense on a 4-turn cooldown. Nice to see that from a Spirit Affinity Dwarf champion as well. So there's definitely use cases to upgrade really all of these epics. All the Dwarf epics are buildable in my opinion. Just depends on what you need. But I do think that personally, like my 2 faves are Grizzled Jarl and Runekeeper. So guys, we're going to end the video there. Let me know, who did I include on this list that you are just not a big fan of, and who did I leave off the list that you guys think I absolutely snubbed? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching all the way till the end, and as always, take care, guys.